Welcome, everybody. As we settle on in here as per normal, hope everybody's doing well. This beautiful, beautiful sunny day here in Toronto, Canada. Settling in. How's everyone doing? As normal, if you're returning, please let us know where you're coming from. If you're brand new, please let us know where you're coming from. That's probably one of my favorite parts in the beginning of the webinar is I actually get to see as the chat box is just going off where you guys are all coming from today. And it's really cool. I see some Toronto people. Welcome. Chicago, Illinois. Excellent. Mississauga, not far off. The Philippines. Guys, for real, we have this group of people from the Philippines that I've had the pleasure of emailing with. Phenomenal group there. Welcome back as per normal. I saw Edmonton really quick. Nova Scotia's coming out there. Colorado, New York. Hope everyone's well. I know times have been pretty crazy right now, not just down in the States, but across the world, of course, with COVID. But on the same side, I hope everybody is safe, and that the same side. Please don't be shy to speak up these days. I think that's the biggest one we're learning about. Just going to give another minute or two before we actually do get rocking and rolling here, just to everyone to settle on in. If you're just joining, welcome, welcome. Oh, I saw Nevada there pretty quick. Texas. Hello, Elizabeth from, I saw Elizabeth from where? I saw briefly, but then the chat just went off, guys. Hope everyone's well. If you're returning, welcome back. If you're brand new, welcome. Pleasure to have everybody. Super excited to get into today's webinar. I'm just going to give it another minute or two here. Hello, Alabama. I saw you there. Pretty quick, but I saw you there. Hope everyone's well. As per normal, if you're on the chat right now, don't forget to say hello to Carmen. She's there too. We'll do some small intros in just a moment. Just getting ready, letting everyone just settle on in. Very excited. Hope everybody's doing well. As provinces and states start to settle down, start to reopen, there's lots of learning, lots of questions coming up. Very excited to go through our webinar here with you today. Alrighty, I see New Mexico, Pickering. That's local, just so everyone knows. Not the New Mexico part, but. Hello, Doris from Washington. See, I get you. So, just so everyone knows, the session is recorded. I know a lot of people had some connection problems last week. When we do get tons and tons of people on, sometimes that tends to happen. If you are having connection issues, just refresh it on there, okay? And you should be able to join back pretty quickly. If for some reason the connection is not working, I know it can be really frustrating as well, but we're doing our best here. But it is all recorded, and we do send it out, okay, as part of the show notes. As usual, that will come out tomorrow. This guide today will come out tomorrow. So if you're not able to participate in the whole thing, you will get a recording, so not to fret about missing anything. And if it freezes up as well, don't be shy here. Just let us know if it's freezing. You reset, start back fresh, you'll get everything, but not to fret on missing anything. Okay? Alrighty. I think in a minute here, we're going to start rocking and rolling. Remember, great questions coming through the chat. Send them on to Miss Carmen here. Let's get started. Let's get rocking in the program here and get you up for today. As per normal, small intros. If you're just joining us for the very first time, I'm Ria. I'm an early childhood specialist here with Hi Mama, and I have my partner in crime, Carmen, here in the back end. Carmen?
Hi.
Like I said, say hello to Carmen. She's taken those great questions on the chat box there for you, but she's the community coordinator here at Hi Mama. So she's a fabulous lady to work with. Today, our special guest to come, Becca sadly could not join us here today. So if you were coming on and see what's been going on with Becca, she did have a bit of an emergency happen and she wasn't able to join us. But we do have, I'm very excited, we do have Heather coming in from Nova Scotia. I'm super pumped. We've never had, I think, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, Carmen, but we've never had a Canadian yet on. So very excited for that. As per normal, guys, this face here, it's not the face of legal advice. It's not financial advice, okay? Ideally here, we want to make sure you guys are taking away inspiration, and we want to make sure that when you guys are getting ready to go back to work, Go back to the kiddos. I'm sure everyone's excited, nervous, a little bit of everything. But at the end of the day, consult your people, consult the appropriate people if you're looking for anything specific as well. Okay, just always some good stuff. Let's go through a couple of things we're going to cover here today. We have some content we want to cover just a little bit here, talking a couple of things we had talked about over the course of the last couple of webinars, but some great reminders, couple little tips here. I found a little piece that I wanted to share here, and then we're going to jump in with Heather there and jump into Q&A as per normal. So don't be shy. Like I said, pass those questions on through to Carmen on the chat there. Let's dive in. So this was a really little cool piece that I had the pleasure of putting in this webinar here. It's a little bit more about what life with COVID as an early childhood educator means to me. And I think a lot of educators out there right now can actually attest to this one. For me, I'm feeling a lot of movement, and it excites me in many ways. I've had the pleasure of watching and seeing associations around me and things affiliated with educators. And I think that it's really time for us to step up and say our piece again. I know we have been tooting our horns for a while here, but I feel like economy can't restart. They can't restart without us. So restarting the economy means restarting childcare, means educators back to work, as scary as that is, because times are wild right now. Like, wild's the understatement, but let's be real. It's time to make some change. And like I said, COVID for me right now means movement. It's not just a scary thing that's happening. So we're such an impact as educators on the world, on the future. And I think it's a huge piece that we need to take right now and really jump into it. Okay. So as you teachers, you fabulous, fabulous people, go back to the classroom and get the world re-going and start it back up again. This was a really cool little attachment I found here. I was reading a study out of Harvard, and it was talking about supporting teachers. And this is a huge piece right now as you return to work, because, we're all nervous. We're all scared. We really don't know what to expect. There's no straight guidelines. There's no ins and outs and everything that's happening right now. And in this, I really thought that was a nice piece for directors, owners, even teachers, other teachers and parents looking at supporting their teachers. And this was the best way to picture it. Right now, we all know children build up resilience, and they're the best at it, I think, and we learn from them. But teachers need to build that. And part of it, because not that we don't have it, but it's just more that we haven't probably really been using it as much right now. And part of the ways you can do so is unloading some of those negatives. And so a lot of that can go with like going back to work. We talked about this in our mental health webinar several weeks back now about, turning off the news, do your check-in and do your due diligence. I'm not saying don't do it by any means, but ideally you want to take your stress level down. And in this case, you want to shift. So right now we've got the positive on the higher end, and that's the way we want to keep it. So some centers as well, you do have, some do, some don't, but you do have the option of getting benefits even if you are on unemployment or you're on furlough. Remember as well, keep the relationships you already have. So yes, we may not physically be able to see our people and physically be with them, but that doesn't mean we can't continue to actually build on those relationships. So remember, we have that power, and we can do so. One of the big ones is moving this fulcrum, and the fulcrum actually is that piece, that pivot piece in the center there. By moving it, you can actually tip the scale in your favor. So remember to strengthen your core, and whether that's you build on your life skills, you take an extra course while you're just waiting to go back, and you have a bit of time and you can do so. I'm sure if you have a couple of kiddos or even one hanging around the house, that may not be the case, but at the end of the day, support your inner core and build on you. Okay. Every teacher out there is an amazing person, and you guys are doing absolutely phenomenal. Okay. Don't forget that. Bring those parents back. This is a hard one too. Children are excited with the possibility of going back, but their parents are just as nervous probably as we are. So if I'm sure you have been, but if you haven't, make sure to be as clear as possible with your parents, especially about potential changes that are happening within your center. Okay, be a resource for your families. Provide them with the right facts. Make sure that what you're giving them is correct, and or do your best as correct as possible. Okay, ideally too, especially if you're looking at opening up and getting those things going right now, try not to overwhelm your parents with a whole pile of stuff. So like, for example, the changes that are happening and then all of the reminders from a regular parent welcoming. Maybe just take it a step at a time. It's probably your best bet. Don't forget to, like I don't feel like parents get enough feedback, positive feedback. I wish I could go around to every educator and tell you how much I appreciate you. But you have that chance there to offer feedback to your families and make a positive piece to them. So like I've said this probably many, many times, you guys are providing an awesome, awesome thing for families. You're bringing up children, you're bringing up the future. Parents really rely on you. And that's a huge piece, especially as the economy starts to come back and as well as, the world restarts again. Let's jump in as well. These kiddos, we've kind of talked about this over, I don't want to say the last 2, maybe 3 webinar sessions that we've been running. Children, obviously, they know what the normal was. Some maybe not, depending on their age, depending on their development, but most children catch on and they're pretty quick at it. Make them feel as comfortable as possible. And this is something too, I think practicing with the kiddos will actually make you feel as comfortable as possible. Ideally, at the end of the day, you just want to make sure, hey, they're happy, they're healthy, you're happy, you're healthy, and so are their families. So maintain your social connection. Teach those children how they can still be social. This is a hard one, especially with the idea of social distancing in the classroom. It kind of goes against everything educators like to do. We encourage them to be social, but remember too, they need to be safe. And last, give yourself a break. Don't forget to, it's okay if you feel like it's wrong. There's no right or wrong right now anyways. There's no wrong way to do this. Ideally, you want to be safe and making sure you're not in that wrong, but treat yourself. And as well, let the kiddos know they can take a break, that this is hard work for them too, and hard work for mom and dad. So take the time right now. I think I appreciate time just that little bit more now than I did. It's probably my biggest takeaway is my understanding and concept of time has changed vastly over the last coming weeks. So jump in here. I want to bring on the lovely Heather, all the way from Nova Scotia. I want to make sure as well, there a small correction you may have gotten in your email that we send out on the Monday, just saying, hey, this is our good to go. Heather is not open yet. She's looking at opening in the next coming weeks. And there might have been a mix up there. So I wanted to make sure that was on the correction here. But she's been in the field for many, many years, been in a variety of different roles. And she's in the process here with her center, getting them up and going. Hopefully, I know here in Ontario, our fingers are crossed about when. The when is the big question. But Heather, if you want to join us up now, we're going to start diving with some questions with you. Yay, Heather, welcome.
Hi, everybody.
Super excited to have you. Why don't you dive in for a little bit, though, more and tell us a little bit more about you guys, what's happening down there in Nova Scotia.
Sure. So first off, I have presented many times over the years, but I've never been part of a webinar. So thank you so much for this exciting opportunity.
Welcome.
I am in my 50s. I feel like I love technology, but like this is, I've participated in a lot of webinars and not just because of the mandatory closure. I feel like probably everyone who's flipping up in the chat, all 2,558 of you have done a million webinars since we've been mandatorily closed. My staff have done a lot as well in the past numerous weeks. I do find it fascinating. I was chatting with my staff about the certificates. Everybody chases the certificates.
Always.
I know, right? Like even myself. I mean, in Nova Scotia, we need 30 hours of professional development over 3 years. So
Okay.
it's not difficult to achieve that. I sort of think that's a little low, and maybe we should possibly get more than 30 hours in 3 years. But they do chase the certificates, and I think it's more than just what we need for documentation for our licensing people
Yeah.
or our certification people. I think it's that it's a form of validation for us, because as a profession we don't get enough validation. So
Yeah.
so I'm like cyberly giving you all medals and here you go, here they all are, bouquets of flowers. I know you need, Rosa, I know you need to show proof. We need to show proof as well. But I'm just saying, like some of my staff in some of our team conversations over the past couple of weeks, or our staff Zoom meetings, have been like, I attended this one and I couldn't get a certificate. And I'm like, it's okay, guys. Like, it's all right. I mean, worst comes to worst, I own another company that does certificates because we do conferences for that company. I'm not suggesting I would falsify certification, but I'm just saying, like, take a breath. I think one of your slides said that, take a breath. And so, yeah. The audio is not clear. Please increase your volume.
I was just going to recommend if you can just turn up a little bit, and then this way they'll be a little bit louder on their end. So
I'm not sure how to do that. I told you it's my first webinar, so I'm assuming
it's all good.
Where do I go? I turned up my speaker, but I'm looking. I'm not seeing how to turn up my microphone.
Sure.
Should I shout?
Shout, Heather. Shout to the world. Let's dive in, Heather.
Is this better?
Tell us a little bit. Everybody's asking the same question. What is your reopening experience looking like right now? I know you guys are in the process, but it's going to be a little different everywhere. We know that too. It's going to vary from state to state, province to province. But tell us so far, like what is it looking like for you guys down there?
So one of the things is that over the mandatory closure, people, when they haven't been doing webinars, depending upon your individual personality, some people have been obsessively baking or Netflixing or emptying closets, or some people have repainted their whole houses.
Yeah.
So actually the thing that I do whenever I'm feeling stressed or anxious, you may all think that I'm crazy, but what I actually do is I reach out and I connect to early childhood people around the world. So I actually have friends and colleagues in Australia, New Zealand, in England, and I have a lot of American friends. And so I've been participating in every Tuesday night a North American providers Zoom, where we've been talking about what we're feeling about reopening and all of our guidelines. I'm friends with Corey Berg from ECE from the Heart from Dallas, and also a lot of friends through Green Mountain Teachers Camp in Vermont. So then I have lots of colleagues across Canada as well. And so I conducted some interviews with some people on their guidelines for reopening in Prince Edward Island and New Brunswick. So for me, I'm rather, that's what I do. I don't bake. I do eat. I don't bake. I have not painted a wall. I have not cross-stitched. I have barely Netflixed. So in some ways, it's stressful because I'm overloading myself with all of the guidelines of everywhere else. But it sort of fills my bucket, and maybe it helps fill some other people's buckets. So that's what I do. So what's happening here in Halifax is that we were supposed to reopen June 8th, but it has now been finalized that it is 100% June the 15th.
Okay.
And so that was a press conference the day before yesterday. And at the same press conference, they announced that our guidelines were finally ready because a bunch of us worked very hard from the professional association and the other associations. with public health in Nova Scotia to write them, and they were finalized. And so it was fascinating because that evening, I mean, before the press conference was over, parents were texting and emailing me. And that evening, a group of directors from Nova Scotia, we were together in a chat on Facebook, and some of us were refreshing our email, and some of us were refreshing the government's website, waiting for those guidelines. So we have them now, but certainly for me, I think a lot of you, all of you here in this webinar, I sort of see most directors or programs as falling into three categories for getting prepared.
Okay.
And that is, one group is the over-prepared people, and they've read every single regulation from every state, country, continent, province, etc. And we have ordered, like, not myself, I'm not in the over-prepared group, even though I've read all that stuff. And they've ordered, like, things like lab coats for all of their staff. And they've ordered special mats that have disinfectant in them that you, like, every day put new stuff on, and as you walk to enter the building, it disinfects your shoes. And they've got hand washing stations, and they've already got their contactless thermometers, etc. So they have read everything, and they've basically been ready for a couple of weeks. Then we've got the people sort of more like myself, that I have been buying some stuff, because of course there's the fear, and it's a very real fear. Like if you think, if you know how we say control your fear and really assess your fear, it's a real fear that you're not going to be able to find it. You're going to get your guidelines, and you're going to need like a hand washing station for outside, and then you're not going to be able to find it. So I'm in the middle group. I've been reading everything, and I've been like trying to see, do I for sure need this? And sort of trying to figure out how many days or how many weeks for Amazon to get it, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's the last group, and I worry about the last group a lot. I worry so much about them that I did. So I'm the administrator of a group on Facebook that has about 3,000 people in it. It's called ECE HRM in Nova Scotia. And I know that we have ECEs in it that are not in Nova Scotia because we do not have 3,000 practicing early childhood educators in Nova Scotia. But
it might think.
I know from comments in that group that there is another group of directors that have had, I'm going to offend people, but they have had their heads buried in the sand for the entire closure. And so they haven't rewritten any protocols. They have not read things from other provinces or states, and they have not started to purchase anything. And in many ways, they feel justified because they say things like, you know, if it's not what Nova Scotia requires, I shouldn't read it because it will confuse me, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, you have to find a balance between all of those things. So there's three groups. There's the people who have everything purchased, plus then some, and they were ready weeks ago. And then there's the people who I feel are like ostriches with their heads buried in the sand, and I want to just hug them and say, like, if I can spare anything, I will help you out. And then there's sort of those of us who've been trying to walk a balanced line in the middle. And that's where we're at. Our team met in person for the first time this week, the other day.
Oh, how did that go, Heather?
We've had lots of Zooms. So it was unnerving to see people three-dimensionally that I've only seen like on a screen.
This much.
So the staff meeting, like I said, we're going to turn 25 in September. As long as we survive this, we'll have a big anniversary. We'll have a virtual anniversary, I guess. So we had a staff meeting in our parking lot because one of our goals is to spend as much time outside as possible. I feel like most of you have already been told this repeatedly, that one of the best health protocols is to be as outside as possible. So we have 6 classrooms and 2 playgrounds at our program. And so our staff meeting was in a parking lot, and we're having another big staff meeting tomorrow in the parking lot. So it was nice to see everybody. It was exciting. But then we went in separate doors. We usually would go in one door, but we all went in separate doors to the different classrooms. And it was pretty emotional. Some staff were really, really, really sort of smacked in the face emotionally.
Yeah.
Myself, the first couple of times I would go there to do some maybe paperwork, not hearing children or seeing them or anything like that. I just kept sort of lying to myself saying, it's a Saturday. But as the weeks went on, it got harder and harder. So I've acclimated to it, but for the teachers themselves, it's really hitting them hard. So those of you who are not yet opening, if you are in like a certain phase where you can actually be in a group, as long as you're social distancing, I highly encourage you to start to get together in some way, not just Zoom, because it is hard on the brain and
For sure.
the emotions. I just saw someone ask about thoughts on outdoor hand washing stations. I did purchase 2.
Okay.
I got them on Wayfair, and another center here in Halifax had purchased some, and my goodness, they were not there when they arrived, and instantaneously Wayfair shipped them back to Ontario. So thank goodness we, by a fluke, were at this. One of us was at the center the day they came, so we were like, thank goodness. So we're excited to have them. We're going to have them when we do our outdoor health checks at the beginning of the day.
Okay.
We're going to have them at the end of the day when the parents pick up. And we're actually going to also have them on wheels so that we can sort of trolley them into the playground, for the front playground and the back playground during the day.
That I like that. And then this way too, it's accessible to where you need it to be. Having it mobile is just it's great in any education setting, I feel like, because being able to move things around is like just a big key. So with your guidelines, because I want to back up a little bit more, or I know this will be different no matter what. Do you know off the top like what the class size and the ratios will be? I know centers who have gone back have been very like lower ratio or like half the ratio as it was. Is that what's happening in Nova Scotia right now too? Or are you guys at a different ratio? What's looking that for you guys?
Yeah, so that's an awesome question. And having read the guidelines for so many states and even other provinces, I was just playing a guessing game. Like the purchases that I've been making have been sort of a guessing game. I kept thinking that possibly we would be a lot like Prince Edward Island, or New Brunswick, because they're our neighbors, correct?
Yeah.
But PEI had 27 total cases of COVID, and they were all traceable by travel. And then New Brunswick, again, also had infinitely less than we had here in Nova Scotia. We still have some active cases in Nova Scotia. So, needless to say, we are not opening the same way.
Fair.
We are opening at 50% capacity. So I'm licensed for 106 children a day, and so I can open with 53. Our ratios are staying exactly the same.
Okay.
So my infant room, I can usually have, it's sort of 2 infant rooms. So I would normally be able to have 16, and so I will be opening with 8 infants. And so then our toddler ratio is 1 to 6, and our preschool ratio is 1 to 8. So we sent a survey out to parents the same evening the guidelines came out. So I already had the survey designed because I knew that we would not be opening at 100% capacity.
Fair, yeah.
And I recommend to everyone to already have that survey designed. Some places, some governments are giving you the criteria for selecting those families that are the first families to return. So perhaps essential service workers' children, or perhaps children with identifiable special needs that need interaction and need intervention. So our government did not give us any criteria for the selection of the 50%. So I wanted to send that survey out beforehand,
Yeah.
but I needed to wait because I thought that if there was anything I needed to modify in my survey, I did not want to send a survey to parents and then get the guidelines and then have to send another survey, because I think in one of your slides you talked about giving parents facts, but like
Yep.
almost like not giving them too much because it's a
You don't
lot
wanna-
for them to process.
Yeah, you don't want to overwhelm them. We're all kind of at that phase anyway, so there's no need to add to it kind of idea. I'm glad that you waited, but then as well you had your validation when you waited too. So we've had a couple of really good questions, Heather, coming through, and I just want to address one because it's a general question, and people are asking a little bit more about toddlers. I think this has been a pretty hot topic, especially with social distancing with toddlers. Have you guys come up with a plan about your toddlers and what that will look like for you guys? I know you said you'd be at a 1:6 ratio, right?
So I'm pretty sure that every state and every province, I know we have some people from the Philippines, so I can only speak to my knowledge of both American programs and Canadian, that most states and provinces have like their head doctor for that province or
location.
state.
Yeah.
Exactly. So here in Nova Scotia, we have our now famous Dr. Strang. And so he said right from the beginning when our associations met with him to help develop the protocols and procedures that he did not see children social distancing. So although we are highly recommended to run each classroom as a bubble, and we will be doing that, we do not have to require social distancing for our children in the classrooms or on the playgrounds.
Okay, very interesting.
We're very lucky in that regard.
That's very interesting. I'm glad that that's the case as well, because I feel like most people, and I may tend to agree as well, to social distance any toddler, any child is not going to be easy, and it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle, I think. So I'm glad that you guys had that input as well, like that was a valid input for you guys. I want to jump on a couple of extra questions here for you. You were talking about the health screenings. So for you guys, I believe outdoors, what was that looking like for you guys? Because I know you'd mentioned about the health screening and outside. I wasn't sure if they were correlated or not, but what is that looking like for you guys, for the children coming back and your staff too?
So again, having read things from other places, I know that there are some places that the centers themselves in other jurisdictions were allowed to develop the health screening questionnaire from scratch. What we recommended, because when we, as a group of 5 associations, met with him, he spent it was an hour, and like we hadn't written anything yet. So he gave it, for a half an hour, he sort of, in the nicest, most kind way, lectured us about the epidemiology of COVID-19, and gave us a lot of statistics about how children have it and whether or not they spread it, et cetera, et cetera. And that was sort of his information to explain to us why he did not see social distancing. Like, not only is it not developmentally appropriate, but there were health reasons why it would be unnecessary. And then that second half an hour is when the associations sort of chatted with him about what they thought, and then they were tasked with so many days of drafting it up. So with regards to the health screening thing, we really wanted, at least to my knowledge, we really wanted the province to come up with it. But for us to have the ability to add to it or modify it, so we are not required. So the province did come up with it. We do have it. It is on a website. And it does not include taking children's temperatures.
Okay.
So and because Dr. Strang explained that it is a low percentage of children with COVID-19 that ever have a fever. Having said that, as a director or operator, you can certainly add that on. They actually have commentary in the supporting documents with it that say not necessarily to do that. So I did jump on the bandwagon and order the contactless thermometers, and we will be monitoring things. I mean, we do have, I will say, we have a zero tolerance for any of the symptoms, zero tolerance. And I was a little bit surprised at that because some places, I mean, I don't know about yourself, because Nova Scotia, it's like they added to the list of symptoms every couple of days, and the list of symptoms now is huge. It's huge. I have like a lot of those symptoms every day of my life.
I'm sorry, Heather.
I'm in my 60s. I have a lot of those symptoms every day. Muscle aches. Really? Seriously? So we're choosing to do our health screenings outside. We are like as a center, we're choosing that. They're encouraging that they take place outside, and they are encouraging that parents not enter the center. But you can, as individual centers, make that decision. So they're giving us quite a bit of autonomy, really. And so I am taking the health screening questionnaire pretty much as it is. I may just add one or two sentences to it. And of course, then they have to approve my plan. As with any businesses reopening, the government has to approve all of our plans.
Yep, that's a pretty solid thing, I think, across the board for most locations, I would say, at the end of the day. I've been seeing a couple of questions coming through the chat, but I wanted to touch on this one because it actually has to do with it. So, of course, parents are a little worried about what's happening, and bringing their children back has probably been, like, I think most parents, the largest anxiety. I don't blame most parents. It's what it is, and they don't want to have the possibility of their child bring it home or them give it to their child and pass it to another family. Just there's so many things that can go wrong. But the same said, how are your families feeling about coming back and easing their anxieties? How is that going for you down there?
So in the creation of my parent survey, a lot of directors that I knew kept it very, very, very limited to just a couple of questions. And it goes back to the same thing in your earlier slide, like not overwhelming parents, because they don't know all the ins and the outs of what goes on and what's behind the scenes to make an early childhood program happen. So basically the questions, I think I have 7 questions.
Okay.
And the seven questions include, like, what is your full name? What is your child's full name? One of the other questions is exactly how old is your child now? Because since we've been closed for 3 months, typically they may have graduated to another classroom. So I know that I can look all of that up, but I made sure to have like a statement with each question. So it would say how old is your child now? And then in brackets it would say, please know that your child may not be in the same classroom when they return. So perhaps they're still that same age, like maybe they're still a toddler, so the parent would expect that they would come back and be in the Zest classroom or the Bounce classroom. But we want to keep siblings together wherever possible because they're from the same bubble at home.
Yep.
So wherever possible. So although our mandated ratios are the same, because we're at 50% capacity, we are going to, because of that, have reduced ratios. Because we're going to be 100% staff. We're coming back 100% fully paid staff, 20 staff with only the 53 kids. So I had 3 sections to the survey. Are you coming back June 15th? Would you like to come back sometime in the summer? Would you like to come back September? Or would you like to not return because you are no longer comfortable with group settings for your child as a result of all of this?
Yeah.
And so I would say that, I mean, our 53 spaces, the deadline for filling the survey out is tonight. and we are already full. The 53 spaces are already full for June 15th. And so we have more than that. So we have some people we're going to have to say no to.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have probably of the other 40% of our parents, I'm going to say 30% of them want to return sometime this summer.
Mm-hmm.
5% want to come back in September, and 5% are withdrawing completely because of COVID-19.
Interesting. I find the stats very interesting. I would have thought that they would have been higher on the not sure if they want to return at all. Speaking of September, have you had any parents contact you about being worried about any regression or about their kiddos going to potentially kindergarten in the fall and them being ready for it at all?
I have not had that at all.
Okay.
I know you sent me the questions ahead of time, and I saw that question and thought about it, but haven't experienced it at all at this point in time. It could also be because there's a lot of talk about what school is even going to look like in Nova Scotia. There's talk about I know you're in Ontario, and I know a gazillion of these people who are attending are not nowhere in Canada. So you don't call it primary. The first thing, so for the longest time, our children began in Nova Scotia in primary, and then it went grade 1, grade 2, etc. So a couple of years ago, they created this thing that those of us in licensed childcare caused some of us a great deal of difficulty, called pre-primary. And so it's 75% rolled out in Nova Scotia. The final rollout is this coming September. So as of this coming September, all preschoolers have access to free pre-primary programs. But what they're saying, they haven't announced what pre-primary will look like in a COVID world.
Yeah.
They have said that primary might be half the length of time it normally would be. So I think that the reason parents aren't asking about my child being ready or not ready is because there are a lot of announcements saying that we don't know what elementary school will even look like in Nova Scotia in the fall. So
that's fair. Like you'd said, pretty similar situation here. We don't know yet. We're supposed to hopefully be finding out, I want to say within the next 2 weeks. I think I saw this morning it was 2 weeks or within the next week about we're doing like a phase rollout here. And so we're hoping to go into what phase 2 would be. And that would be including childcare's reopening. So it's the same thing though. We still don't know whether school will return in September or is a big one. I want to ask you one more of our prepared questions, as it were, before jumping into some Q&A, because we have just not too much longer, but do you have any advice for centers about reopening? I know you were talking about, how there's that 3 types of people and being aware of like which category you fall in right now, but do you have any additional advice for directors, owners, teachers, whoever they may be, in getting ready to reopen?
So I'm not going to encourage those of you who find joy and peace and rejuvenation in baking, walks, Netflix, gardening, whatever. I'm not asking you to stop that. Not one of you should do what I've been doing, because I literally have lived and breathed ECE 12 to 14 hours a day. I have put in more ECE hours a day since the mandatory closure than I have in 25 years. but that has been what has de-stressed me.
Yes.
Is talking to people and connecting to people, and I'm so lucky to be in chat sessions with people like Dan Hodgins and all these people from all over the States, and people I really admire and respect, and get to brainstorm about what is developmentally appropriate or not. I get to have an hour-long phone chit-chat with Teacher Tom from Seattle, and I'm pretty spoiled because I get up in people's faces and I make relationships because that's just who I am. But I do have a couple of pieces of advice. Don't read everything like I did, because you're just going to get some of it jumbled up and confused in your brain. Because as your individual jurisdiction opens, I'm shocked that our guidelines are not at all like New Brunswick's and not at all like Prince Edward Island. Because another thing that it says is that when we open at 50% capacity, we are allowed to increase our capacity as the weeks go on, as we feel comfortable. So like basically maybe 3 weeks later, if we feel like we're really good with the routine, with the health screening, with the massive quantities of laundry, with the every 20 minutes washing our hands and singing the ABCs while we're washing the hands, and picnicking outside constantly, et cetera, then we can say, okay, so now let's go to 75% or let's go to 60%. We also have shortened our day. We're usually 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. So we've shortened our day to 8 to 5 initially. I certainly can tell you that some parents are angry about that. But some things I would recommend is I really love something that Susan Stacy just wrote. I highly recommend you read that and have your staff read it. She's an author of several books that have been published by Red Leaf Press. It really helps your staff sort of reset their minds on how to approach the classroom. So we can provide the link for that. Another thing is if you have not yet seen the video from Madeley Nursery School, that's another thing that I really ask my staff to watch, minimizing the materials. So if you do not have a washer and dryer, then obviously you're going to have to tackle that whole thing about soft things, discussions about whether you're removing your area rugs and your soft puppets and your dolls. So we are trying to avoid eliminating things as much as possible, but still be sanitized. We have a washer and dryer. We're so lucky. So you should watch the video from Madeley Nursery School. It's amazing. They made it for their families, but it totally helps you think in a different way, as well as reading Susan Stacy's blog post. I have a friend in Maryland, Courtney Gardner, who runs a program called the Community Play Project. And every single September, so she closes in July and August, but every single September, the way she lays her classrooms out, I have always been fascinated. And I'm trying to emulate her, but my brain isn't quite there yet. But I know that I want to get there. So she has the materials in the room on like one big shelf, and the whole room is empty. And the children get to make decisions about how they want their rooms to be set up. And so that sort of goes along when you're reading your guidelines, the fact that you have to take so many things out, and it sort of makes your educators' hearts break. Because if you've worked really hard to like have all these beautiful wicker baskets and lovely natural materials and soft, inviting things, which is something we've done, like because we're turning 25, back in 1995, our classrooms were like bright red, bright yellow, bright blue, tons of plastic. We had computers in the classroom. It was very much, that's what was typical in an EC setting. And so over the years, we've really taken a different approach, because we do a lot. We're constantly reading about what's appropriate, and we've really created warm, inviting environments. And we have a fear that when the children come back, if the environment is too different, that will just add to the trauma they've experienced, because they have experienced trauma and they will continue, because everybody needs to realize and acknowledge that COVID is not leaving at any point in time in the future. So if you think you're not going to have a case of COVID in your program, then that is not a realistic thought. You just have to do every single thing you can to prevent it. and already have your plan in place for how you would mitigate it and how you would proceed once it happens.
That's a big piece, I think, is just having that plan of action in place. So I wanted to ask, this is probably one of the biggest questions that I think I might ask. It's so from a lady named Kimberly here, and she asked about how are you going to be monitoring for inflammatory response that the doctors are currently seeing in the children right now, and the children who are positive for COVID?
So while we're doing health checks every single day, and the parents have to sign off on every single symptom listed every day, I'm going to be doing a huge amount of parent education, as well as, like, some centers have said things like, I'm going to email the checklist to parents, and they are going to be able to just have it in their car as they drive up and their child hops out. And so, yes, that would be more efficient for dropping off, but I'm not doing that because I want to be able to look them in the eye as they read each symptom and sign off on every symptom. And so my daughter had Kawasaki disease as an infant, so I'm very familiar about what Kawasaki's like. So the thing you're specifically referencing, I'm super familiar with it. So we've actually had in 24 years, 3 children at Kids Are Kids Halifax have Kawasaki disease. So I'm very familiar about how that presents itself. And we are having, like, not only in our center, but our whole province has a 0 tolerance for the list of symptoms. Gotcha. So do that parent education with your parents. You know, don't take the shortcuts. Do not take the shortcuts with regards to them, like, pre-signing the health check questionnaire. I really discourage that so much. Somebody just said they're sorry that my daughter had that. Thank you very much.
I agree.
It was very scary. And then she was on aspirin, baby aspirin, because she had a high chance of blood clots and aneurysms for a year afterwards. So somebody else is saying, what are appropriate toys for toddlers? Everything that was appropriate before is still appropriate. If you know, do you have access to a washer and a dryer? If you do, then they can be. I'm picturing toddlers. You know, if the toddler is sucking on a fabric puppet, they can be sucking on a fabric puppet. They can be doing that, but you're immediately taking it and it's going to be washed. And so, for me, I'm looking at the price of a commercial washer and dryer, because for 24 years I've had, like, a household washer and dryer. And I don't think that's going to stand up to the quantity of laundry we're going to do.
Probably not. I don't blame you. You probably, that investment will pay you back full time over. So Heather, I want to keep going. I love this, but at the end of the day as well, being conscious of the time for everybody on the webinar, is there any last thoughts you'd like to leave us with, just in general, about what's been happening right now around the world?
So for me, my favorite topic to present on, my favorite topic is creating a culture of saying yes to children in the environments. And so if I were presenting on that, I'd be talking about the magic of plungers in children's play, the use of shop vacs with children, and a bunch of other things that give children power. So I very much believe that even though we're going to be doing tons of sanitizing, all of those ECEs who are being super negative and saying, oh my God, we're not going to be able to do anything with the children, we won't have any fun anymore. You know what, that mindset, it's not helpful. I know that you need to go through it, let yourself be in it very briefly, and then move that stuff right outside of your head. And there's a couple of things I mentioned will help you to do that, because you can still have fun. And you do not have to apply the sunscreen with a hockey stick in Canada. You can be closer to the children than that. But the children need to be able to jump and climb and experience a sense of power. They actually will need more of a sense of power now than they needed before this situation, because they're living in very much a powerless world. A lot of us as adults are feeling powerless. So those are the things that I'm saying, is that if you're not aware, or you don't already have a culture of saying yes to children, that's what you need to start to wrap your head around after you do all of your guideline memorization and your massive shopping for supplies.
Heather, thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure. I wish we could talk for hours. I feel like there's so much I could probably pull out of your mind. At the same time, everyone here at Hi Mama thanks you for joining us. Everybody on the webinar thanks you for joining us. It's been an absolute honor having you on. Hang tight for a sec while I just do a couple of shout outs here and we wrap up here. This is probably one of my other little cool favorite bits that I get to see besides where everybody's coming from when they sign on. But Lisa says that this has all been very interesting. New drop up and pick up procedures are in place for them, but they're still allowing their students, their staff obviously are in the building. They're doing daily temperature checks, wellness, mask wearing, classroom. They're doing as much social distancing as possible. Lisa, you guys keep up the good work. Everyone is doing the best they can at a time that's just so kind of unpredictable. And then Janine, I hope I'm saying that right. They are going to take away the things that can't be washed easily, but doing their best to keep going with those things that can. I'm going to bump off here and let the Miss Carmen come on just for the certificates, the thing that we were talking about just before. But these are the instructions. Carmen, come on back here and take it away here for a couple of minutes.
Hey everyone, so we're doing something a little different today. I've actually included the certificate template in the files, so just click on that. You will need to fill out your name and your center name in the blanks, so download it. You can fill it out using a PDF form filler online, or print it out and fill it out manually, and you're done. We're making it really straightforward for you guys. And we will also be sending it out as an email. So if you miss it here, don't worry, it's gonna be in your inboxes and we'll attach it to the show notes tomorrow. So many different ways to get the certificate here. And thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us. Thank you, Heather, for your insights, and good luck as we go through the next 2 weeks to reopen, and wishing all of you guys safety, wishing you guys health. Thanks for spending your afternoon with us. And if you have any questions, you know where to find Ria and I.
Oh, sorry, Carmen, you want to go back?
And yes, and for next week's session, we're actually going through the childcare reopening checklist. That's going to be a step-by-step checklist of everything that you need. And it's going to be same place, same time next Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Awesome. We'll see you guys.
Thank you again, Heather. And once again, everybody from here at Hi Mama, thank you so much for joining us. Take care, stay safe, stay healthy.
Perfect. See you guys. Bye.
Bye.